Hello world of YouTube, and welcome to the listening log update for January of 2022. A video that I've been very in my head about when making, and I think it's just because I took December off because I wasn't feeling great mentally, and so getting back into the pool of reviewing music in a new sense just wasn't hitting my brain in a way that was conducive, I guess. I don't know. Either way, I will make a video talking about the albums I listened to in December of last year, but it's going to come later, well beyond the point when it would have been proper to as a joke. For now, I'm going to talk about the 6 albums I listened to throughout January. A lot of stuff dropped in January, even some stuff that I missed for a typical January. It felt like it was ripe with releases, some of which I was instantly hyped for, some of which definitely piqued my curiosity, and some follow-ups to records that I was just curious to see where they would go. Let's go ahead, though, and dive on in.
I'm pushing myself further, I'm just trying to feel my heartbeat beat.
Abel, The Weeknd, surprised us with a brand new record, Dawn FM, at the beginning of the year, a follow-up to easily one of his most tightest releases to date, After Hours, a record that saw him opening more of the world's eyes to his greatness by having some great bops and a fusion of 80s nostalgia with his own brooding sense of dark ambience incredibly well. And Dawn FM sees him diving further into the 80s rabbit hole with more concepts and broader strokes painted, but I think left the canvas a little less vibrant this time around. I like this record. I think it is very solid, and I think that it is still one of his most concise records, even with everything going on conceptually. But I feel like with that conciseness, some of the bigger concepts, or some of the concepts as a whole, kind of got left to the wayside, unfortunately. And one of the things I was hoping to see more of with this record was something from After Hours in spades, which was great hook work. You know, I think that on that record, he continued that pop, leaning edge he'd been going into for the last couple of releases, but dove headfirst into even more bop bangers. And this record, while having a great one in Take My Breath, which was the lead single and has an extended version on this record, I think it's easily the best hook on the project. I think the production is fantastic and showcases more of that synthetic edge from the 80s, toyed with a little more, normally, but I think that Abel works with it very, very well, and that's showcased on the record in spades. But I wish a lot more of this record had hooks like this. There isn't a Heartless on here. Take My Breath is the closest it gets to like a Heartless, but there's no Heartless. There's no Blinding Lights by any stretch of the imagination on this project, and that's a little upsetting, because one of the things that I do think shines on this record is an attention to detail when it comes to the writing, in a way that I think was on After Hours, but feels a little more nuanced on here. While the hooks are very much seemingly taking a backseat, I appreciate some of the writing and the verses on this record. Tracks like Gasoline and Sacrifice, Out of Time, all feel like they're adding to this concept of reflection. This record as a whole not only sonically sounds like a memory, a lot of the lo-fi edge in the synthetic textures sounds like something Twerp was doing on their most recent album, also comes across on this Weeknd project. Quincy Jones being attached to this makes a lot of sense. And not just in how it sounds, but into the concepts of the album it's talking about with reflection and looking back on your life, because there's the track with him and Jim Carrey, who narrates this, who talk about a pivotal memory in their life that shaped them in some way, while, 80s happens in the background. It's their point for the record to get very on the nose with his concepts. And while I don't hate them, they do feel like these weird sonic diversions from the record, and it's even more jarring when the album closes out on one in the Jim Carrey one. But those moments are meant to sort of enhance tracks like Every Angel is Terrifying, which is this beautiful synth track that just has these spoken word vocals and this sort of ad bit. It's a very world-building track, and there's a handful of them on the project, but they feel very haphazardly placed throughout the track listing. And I feel like while the sonic palette on here is super consistent, there's some pockets where things that aren't as interesting happen on them. I like the spoken word stuff. Like, I think Every Angel is Terrifying is great. I think the radio bit on the end goes on for a bit too long, but I do like the song, and I feel like it's a good lead-in to Don't Break My Heart, but even Don't Break My Heart isn't my favorite lower-key track on the record, and I think that the collaboration with Lil Wayne that comes right after that is probably my least favorite collaboration on the project. You know, there's just this pocket where the record kind of falters a little bit. You know, it's got a great run, by and large. I do like a handful of the tracks here, and I dig that. I dig, again, the production on here so much. Gasoline sounds like a fucking Depeche Mode offshoot. I think that it's an incredible song. You know, I think the Tyler collaboration is fucking incredible on here. And I think it fits in a good place in the record where he's doing these softer, lower-key jams. You know, I kind of wish the concept were executed a little better. I don't mind some of the radio stuff, but I think it goes a bit far in pockets or just kind of goes on for a little too long. It's not songs for the deaf, and that's what it feels like it's aiming for at certain points on this album. I don't know. I thought this thing was solid, but it definitely felt like, you know, I like this album. I think that it's very solid, and I feel like in the pantheon of The Weeknd's discography, I still think it's not his worst record. I feel like he's done worse. You know, it's weird, where this album I feel like could have gone farther and stuck the landing, he pulled back a little too soon and left this record that just felt undercooked in some regards, and it left me frustrated, you know, because I liked parts of this, but I wasn't loving it as much as I was After Hours. Because I love The Weeknd. You guys may or may not know that. I've only reviewed a handful of his records on here, but I've been a Weeknd fan for a long time, and when I sit down to do a Weeknd discography breakdown, I'll be sure to talk about that, but I do like The Weeknd, and I've liked him for a long time, and I feel like when he excels, it's great, but this is more of an example of like a Weeknd album. You know, I think that it's solid. I'm giving it like a 7, but I really wanted to like this thing more than I did.
I'ma need a bigger bag for the cohort. Trying to make a millionaire out of Slumdog.
There were 2 pocket hip-hop records that dropped this month, and Earl's Sweatshirt Sick was the first one I spun, and it was one that I was incredibly hyped for because I liked the lead single off of this, 2010, a lot. I thought that the beat was really cool with its synthetic flourishments. I thought Earl had a great flow on it, and it had this abstract presentation that mirrored a lot of what he had been doing on some rap songs and Feet of Clay. You know, and given the production credits on here, you know, Black Noise, The Alchemist coming in here. He's got Z Loopers and Arm & Hammer on this project as features. 2 abstract hip-hop artists that were on records that I really loved or had dropped projects that I thought were fucking great. So I was honestly really stoked with this record, and walking away from it, I thought it was great. Similarly to a record like Unlocked by Denzel Curry, it just feels like a concentrated dose of an artist. You know, he adorns the same flow that you heard him do on albums like Some Rap Songs and when his features like on the latest Arm & Hammer project, like on Old Friend or on Sick. He gets to channel a fucking pocket in a good, fun, buoyant sense like on 2010, and he coats that in a lo-fi edge like on Vision with Z Loopers. Lobby is the most normal Earl has sounded his entire career, but he channels that pocket well. I don't know. I like the idea of taking an artist's talents or like having an artist channel a lot of what they got going on in these pocket projects. You know, it's one of the things I really liked about Unlocked. It left me wanting more, and this does the same thing. But if only because not only is Earl just killing it on here, his wordplay is still top-notch. His flow is still top-notch. It just sounds dope with the producers on hand. You know, when he was on Harem, I was like, man, Earl and the Alchemist really need to link up. And I'm glad that they did on a couple of pockets here, but now I want even more. Some of these links to these songs leave me wanting more in a way that I like, but in the instance of Sick, it does hurt it a little bit. You know, this record's only 26 minutes. It's in and it's out. But it's got a lot of fun shit here. You know, 2010 rips in a handful of instances, because not only does it seem reflective, but in a meta sense, it's like 2010 was when he came out, so this like feels like him just getting reflective, which is cool to see Earl do. You know, one of my favorite Earl songs is Home. The verse that he dropped when he came back after being away during the whole Free Earl shit. And this feels like a glossed up version of that, which is something I've wanted him to do since he dropped that album. Not to say records like Doris and I Don't Like Shit don't channel that in pockets, but like it just, I don't know, there was a magic that was in that song that I feel like is in this project. You know, while I liked some rap songs for having like this Charles Hamilton abstract lo-fi twist to Earl's brand of bleakness, there's an energy on this project that I feel like is Earl growing and expanding his own palette in a way that I think is good for him. You know, and I like this project for that. I think this is a really fun little nugget of joy. You know, I like the people that Earl is creatively surrounding himself with. I think that they have a lot of chemistry together, and I like to see him crop up a lot. And this is just more of that. It's Earl celebrating with his friends, it feels like. I mean, Titanic is a fucking bop and honestly could be like a single if you want to just slice it in to sequence in your playlisting, you know. Similarly to how I felt about his entry on the FM collaboration, the album with Vince Staples, this just gave me, again, more of the Earl I've been seeing, but still left me wanting more Earl. And I'm cool with it. I give it like an 8. I still like this thing a lot. I just wanted a lot more out of it.
Hill on Church Street Blues.
You know, when I came back doing the listening log updates, another band that got introduced into my life at that time was the bluegrass band Punch Brothers by my buddy Evan. They're his favorite band, and they finally have followed up the album that I got into them through, All Ashore, with a new one, Hell on Church Street. And I have grown to enjoy this band's music post All Ashore. I'm not as deep into them as Evan is, obviously. They're his favorite band. And he and I have talked about this album now that I've spun it a handful of times. And I enjoy this thing. You know, it takes a lot of what I liked about All Ashore as like an album experience. And again, it was sort of my first impressions of them. And continues to do more of that in ways that I think are very gratifying. Is there jumbo on this? No. But there are bops on here. You know, I think that the opener, Church Street Blues, is a hell of an opening bop. It's catchy as all get out, and it's got some great reflection in its songwriting that I really enjoy. I think that it's got a nice groove at it. It's got a good kineticism to it without getting lost in the fray, and it bleeds really well into easily one of the best instrumental cuts on this project, Cattle in the Cane. This record slaps. It is a shreddy feeling, proggy-ish instrumental cut that channels that, like, vibrant Pixar film feeling vibe that a track like Jumbo did from All Ashore. I also think they do sort of slower, moodier numbers pretty well on here with a track like Streets of London, which has some really good songwriting and imagery in its lyrics, or Orphan Annie, which is probably my favorite song on the album. I think that it has this bass line that feels very bluesy with some buoyant, lush bluegrass instrumentation to help set the scene of a sort of sadness in a lot of the lyrics and the story that is trying to be told by Chris Thiele. You know, I think that it is an incredibly written song. Again, I think the chorus on it is fantastic, and I think that the solo work is really fun on the song. I think that the groove that's retained above it is incredible. I also think Any Old Time is another bop that has some sort of good reflection done in its lyrics. I think House Carpenter Jerusalem Ridge is a fucking well executed song, especially in the back half when the instrumental stuff just starts to happen. That song goes into a direction that I'm all for, but it's a song with theatricality to it and dramatics that I think, again, sort of leans into that prog realm really, really well, and I enjoy this song in that regard. I think this record's good. Again, it's not all. I don't love all of it. I do wish that the Gold Rush kind of built up to a more gratifying crescendo. But even with my nitpicks aside, I think that this is a well-rounded record that is an enjoyable experience if you like this sort of thing, or if you ever have any curiosity about bluegrass. I think this is a pretty fun record in a lot of regards. There's a lot of fun musical elements to it. The musicality of this project is well harnessed. and I enjoy it. I give it like an 8 out of 10. I like this thing a lot. I think it's really, really good.
No days off, even on a blizzard. When hard work pays off, results look exquisite. With gigs.
And the other pocket hip-hop record that dropped this month was a sequel collaboration that I actually talked about at the beginning of last year. Earl, Droog, and the God Fahim dropped a sequel to The Wolf of Wall Street called The Wolf of Wall Street 2, The American Dream at the beginning of this year. And similarly to The Wolf of Wall Street, I think it's a really solid album. I like Earl Droog. I think that he's a very talented rapper. I think that he's good at executing a concept in a song that he wants to tell. And I think that him and the God Fahim have great chemistry together, honestly. I feel like that chemistry is showcased even more so on this record. And I think that this is, honestly, another quality release across the board. You know, that sample in the hook in the opening track, Wall Street with a Briefcase, is infectious as hell. Same with the vocal sampling on Chubby Pockets. That shit is just liquid gold. I think that the boom bap production, by and large, just creates a good pocket for these two to rock with. You know, Bull Market's groove, the smoothness on the closer, I Won't Stop, all of it. Really good backdrops. And this project as a whole lends to some good bars from the God Fahim, and Droog as a whole. You know, Droog's flow over Chubby Pockets, the fucking Nietzsche line on Corporate Ladder, the God Fahim on Bull Market is killing it. And I like that on this record, a lot of the scope feels focalized for your old Droog, you know? Tracks like the closer, I Won't Stop, see him reflecting on his time so far.
Same with On No Days Off. It really sees him cementing himself back into that mind state that he feels like he's been in since he's been throttling release after release. It's a good showcasing of an artist on his own grind and reflecting on it.
And having a sort of pride in what he's put out there. And you know, this record generally feels like it's throttling in this realm for Droog in a lyrical perspective. You know, there's a lot of reflection on his life as a whole, his place in hip-hop, where he kind of feels like he sits in it all, and I think that he presents that perspective incredibly well. Is it like my favorite thing in its scene? No, but I feel like it's still a pretty decent record from these two, and shows that their chemistry is still palpable as ever, and I could see this flourishing into even more. Again, this is like a pocket hip-hop experience. It's only 22 minutes. It's in and it's out with just some great production and bars at their core. It's a 7 out of 10 record. It's really not that bad. I kind of wish there were more. I would have loved to have seen more features with these two, but I think that in the pocket that it's in, what it's doing, I think it's doing it well without wasting anybody's time.
Hit up Eliante for that diamond necklace. Hey, tell me you don't need shit, girl, and I respect it.
And another record that I was low-key pretty excited about this month was Cordae's From a Bird's Eye View, the follow-up to my introduction to him, The Lost Boy, a project that I thought was really concise and well-constructed. I thought Cordae had some great tracks on there, some of them being some of my favorites of the year. And From a Bird's Eye View, honestly, not quite as consistent as The Lost Boy. I do think it's solid, but I think that this record just doesn't quite stick the landing in the same way. Cordae is doing a handful of things on this project from a tonal perspective, and while I think he handles some of them well, you know, a lot of the thematic scene throughout the Shiloh intro and interlude, tracks like Mama's Hood and C. Carter have this sort of thematics in the writing and tone. It's very reflective about his place, and I think that those tracks all fit in this pocket incredibly well together. I even feel like the stretch of collaborations with Sinister through Champagne Glasses are great. You know, I think Wayne has decent chemistry with Cordae. I like her on Chronicles, and I think the Freddie Gibbs Stevie Wonder collaboration is a wise-ass choice. I just think they don't necessarily fit the pocket of the record they're on, or their like sequencing just feels a bit too jarring. I also don't like the Eminem song all that much, and I think Want From Me's tone just doesn't really sit with me. I like Super, but I feel like it also just kind of comes in at an awkward point on the project. I don't know, this record's kind of a mess across the board, from its sequencing to how some of the experiments or some of the tangents Cordae wants to go on don't quite work as well as others. I don't know. This record's solid. I just kind of wish it were a little more reined in. You know, Cordae's personality still does get to try to cut through. You know, you can tell he's trying to still grow and adapt from his influences, and I think that he shows some promise on this project still. I don't think that there's like an R&P on here, but this record doesn't feel like it's trying to make a song like that. A lot of the hook writing and stuff just feels like it's in a different lane. You know, this record's just fine. It's solid. You know, is it gonna be a record that sticks with me throughout the year? Probably not, but I'm happy that it's here, and I hope that from here, Cordae continues to test things out, find out what works for him, and drop an even more satisfying record next time around.
With its sequencing problems, and even though I would say there were more tracks I would cherry pick from this than I would normally give a record of the score, I'm giving it a 6. It's solid. It is a bit of a disappointment if I'm looking at it honestly, but I do think that if you liked The Lost Boy, you'll find things that you'll like from this. I just think that its weak points stick out a bit too much for me.
European pop singer AURORA dropped a new record this month as well, The Gods We Can Touch. My entry point was their last record as well. It was also a heavy request from frequent reviewer Ryan Schilling. They suggested A Different Kind of Human, Step 2, which may have not been the best entry point to her catalog, but I did enjoy it, and it kept my ears perked for whenever they would drop a new release. And it has come, The Gods We Can't Touch, or The Gods We Can Touch, and it sees AURORA really channeling, I don't know, nostalgia-adjacent moods with some good bops and some intimacy that I was surprised to hear given the sort of sonic components that were on the previous record. This actually sees AURORA jumping into different horizons from that project, and I enjoy the result a lot, actually. I think that Giving Into Love and Cure For Me are fucking bops. I love that intimacy scene on tracks like the opener intro, The Forbidden Fruits of Eden kind of leads into Everything Matters, this intimate feeling cut that also crops back up in Exhale, Inhale, and A Dangerous Thing. I think that You Keep Me Crawling evokes that same 90s dance vibe that a track like Loud Places from Jamie XX's In Color did as well, that hits my brain in just a way that I really, really enjoy. The groove and pocket in that song is untouchable. The almost 90s house vibes on Cure For Me, I also think work incredibly well. I think A Temporary High sounds like a synthetic Cranberries cut in the best way possible. I don't know, this record kind of impressed me. I thought it was really, really good. It was a well-executed melding of pop ideas into a pocket that worked. Is it a bit long? Yeah. Does it feel a bit scattershot at points? Sure. But a lot of the pocket and energy that AURORA rides here is honestly not that bad. I thought that this was a charming release that had a lot of cool stuff in the mix, writing-wise. You know, again, some of the hooks on here are very infectious, can get stuck in your head for what'll be days at a time. You know, the electronic grooves, the pockets that the producers on here found. Really good stuff, and I think AURORA rides it pretty stinking admirably. I give this like a 7. I gave a lot of 7s this month. That's because there was a lot of really solid music that started this year off, and it was really exciting to listen to. Just seemingly, I had to really fight to get back into the pocket of reviewing. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did like this review, if you like the new visual format, let me know in the comments down below. If you did like it, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdary content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons if you want to join the ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community with polls. It's linked in the description. The update on there should be going live by the end of the weekend. We'll see how that comes together. I'm going to get out of here, though. Thank you again so very much for watching. If you want to suggest records that you think I should check out this year, leave them in the comments of these videos. Let me know what you thought of the albums that I listened to this month. Let's just talk new music in the comments down below. I have been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.